Hello, welcome back to Classical Dressage Coach Reviews, USDF level tests. Second level marks a turning point in the horse's development and training. The movements that you start seeing in the second level, such as the haunches in, or traverse, and shoulder in, help the horse to have more balance and collectedness. These lateral movements, which are sideways movements, help strengthen both the horse's sides and start straightening them out. Because everybody's crooked, all of us people are crooked, all of the horses are crooked. So our goal in dressage is to straighten everybody out. And these sideways movements help strengthen the thoracic sling and the lateral stabilizing muscles of the horse. So since you start to get into that with second level, and again, these are tests, so this is after you've been working through all of these movements. That development will mark a decidedly different way of moving for the horse. So the horse is no longer kind of unbalanced, the horse's head's gone up and down a little bit, there's certain acceptable ranges of loss of balance here and there. Second level, you are expected to be balanced. You're expected to have good gaits. You're expected to have good riding. Your hands are expected to be going in the, are straight and going in the same place, at the same time. You're expected to have a consistent contact. You're expected to have good leg aids. And the horse is expected to, like I said before, be completely balanced. I mean, nobody's perfect, nothing's perfect, but the expectation goes from here to here at second level. I guarantee you. So at the second level, you start to see collected trot, medium trot, shoulder in, collected canter, medium canter, 10-meter circles, which help with all of that, counter canter on the straight line, and haunches in. So all of these things start to completely develop the horse's muscle into a well-rounded, well top-lined horse. So let's get into these tests. We're going to be looking at 3 of them. One test per test. We're not going to be doing the 2019 stuff too much longer, now that I can find 2023 stuff. So let's go. We've got the second level, test 1. Here's a nice combination. Now this horse is kind of long, so this person will have had some challenge getting the horse collected. A lot of long horses tend to be a little more strung out. It's not guaranteed, but that tends to be the way they go. This is just a normal horse's anatomy. So we've got the horse, he's reaching down into contact. I would have liked the rider to have a little bit more stabilization in the core and less complete leaning back. As you can see, this rider is not straight in their upper torso, which is making the contact inconsistent. That is a decent shoulder in. So the horse's way of going is pretty easy. That's a nice halt. Nice back, but I would have liked to have that rider's legs more invisible. So this walk is nice, it's nice and long, but it is lacking suspension. So if you see the horse's hind leg, the stifle is not necessarily flexing the way it should. It's just kind of like crawling across the ground. There's not much lift in the shoulder. And again, we've got the wide hands. Now I did start asking around about the wide hands because I just thought this seems to be a trend that keeps going, and I don't know where it came from, but I've also been out of the show circle trainer circles for a while. But I did find out that people like to do that to get a headset. Now we know what we'll talk about that after these tests. So this is a decent working canter. I haven't memorized these tests, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but what I see is a decent working canter. I would have wanted a little bit more lift at the second level. And there's your counter canter, and then you transition down. And again, this horse is kind of crawling across the arena. And that's a pretty good transition from the walk to the canter. There's a lengthening. I would have definitely liked to see more lengthen in the lengthening. So more push and more carriage in from the hind end. So this horse seems very flat. If the rider is probably not helping with their position, and it looks like their leg is pretty stiff. So you see the rider's seat is pushing this horse. So what happens when you push the horse with your seat like that? You just lean back and then just rock your hips into the horse's back. You're actually shoving their thoracic sling down. So it's the exact opposite of what you need to have happen for self-carriage. So you are actually impeding the horse from doing what it's supposed to be doing and what you're asking it to do. So this is where you see a lot of insecure horses that don't really know what exactly is going on. That's why they get insecure, because they're not confident in what they're being asked. So they get spooky, they get insecure, then you see the dressage disasters on Dressage Hub happen. So, all right, moving on. Here's the second level, or the second test. So this is a nice combination, and again, I would have liked to see a little bit more carriage in the horse at second level. He still kind of has a choppy gait. I think this is a pony. He looks kind of small, but this gait is not conducive to sitting and riding it, which if the horse was lifting the thoracic sling, it would become easier to ride and less choppy. So from here, I'm not entirely sure if the rider's leg is moving back and forth because the horse is being spurred, or if the leg is just insecure. And if the leg is insecure, I would have avoided spurs. But I think she's spurring him on. And so at the shoulder in, if you start spurring on the horse from the outside leg, you are not allowing the horse a way out. So you're asking the horse to move their shoulder in and go sideways with their body, with your inside leg. And then you've got your reins going. I don't want to go into rein aids right now, but then you've got your outside leg spurring them on. If you do that, you will have less bend, less impulsion, and you will have a very stiff, confused horse. That's where a lot of people get into trouble with the shoulder in. If you don't have enough impulsion to go into the shoulder in without spurring your horse on from the outside, you're not ready for the shoulder in. So you saw the horse kind of break into a canter there a minute back, and that is basically because she's trying to get more lift out of the horse, she's trying to get more collection, and she's doing it by spurring on the horse, so the horse is like, okay, I'm just gonna go faster, because the horse isn't really sure what to do. So that's why she broke the trot into the canter. And so we now have I think we're doing a collected walk. Again, this seems to be not necessarily as collected, but more slow. Because you see that the horse's stifle is not bending like it should. It's just kind of swinging the hind leg from the hip and just bending the fetlock enough and the hock enough to not drag. So that's not true collection. True collection comes from bending of all of the joints in the hind leg and carrying the rider. And in doing that, they will naturally lift their thoracic sling. But she is at least allowing the horse to stretch forward down in this, so I would give her points for that. And again, I'm not a judge, so I'm solely judging this on my coaching abilities and what I know is supposed to look right. So I don't know how the points work. I know, but I don't know. Like, when I go into competition, like, I'm gonna do the best that I can with what I got. And since I over-prepare, I tend to get really good points and then not necessarily pay attention to the coefficients, but that's my problem. So we've got a canter. Again, the horse looks stiff in the hind end, so it's not true self-carriage. And you can see the hind legs are not coming under the rider. They're just kind of coming under right where the cantle is on the seat instead of completely under where the rider's butt is, basically. So the horse can simply, so this is a example of the horse simply knowing how to do the movements, bare minimum, but not how to actually carry himself properly through the movement, if you know what I mean. And I think it's a she. But when they're talking about throughness and over the back, I talk more about over the back than calling it throughness. You're talking about using those long muscles of the back to carry and to lift the thoracic sling in the forehand, not just simply executing the movement in kind of the manner that it's supposed to execute. Like, you've got a shoulder in, yes, you're on 3 tracks, but what else is going on? So here we go. We're going to the counter canter. And honestly, the counter canter on the straight line is more of a mind game with the horse because they're so used to cantering around circles with a certain lead. And then you ask them to move on into a different lead, going in a straight line. It's not necessarily as much a physical issue because you're still on a straight line, but it's more of a mental thing for both the rider and the horse. So here we're finished up. It's a pretty decent halt, but again, go back to the drawing board with that horse. Go back to training. So here's a horse combination. So this horse does not look very happy. And it shouldn't be a surprise. I was a little surprised, but a little not surprised that when I went to go find the second level test result or tests online, that I could not find a great one. And I think it's because people have lost the understanding of what a second level horse is supposed to look like. But it looks like this horse is trained to do the movements, probably by a trainer. And then the rider is riding through the movements in a certain, I don't want to call it artificial, but certain way that it's just, okay, these are the buttons. I'm going to press the buttons and the horse is expected to do the thing that I'm pressing the buttons for. Instead of really understanding how the horse's body is moving and making tiny little adjustments along the way. So since this horse is lacking these adjustments, this horse isn't very happy. So we've got what looks like to be a lengthening. There's definitely more stifle, all joint movement in the hind end. And you got your 10-meter circles, and then your traver, or haver. So you can see the horse is behind the vertical. The horse will be on the vertical and then behind it. So this horse is dropping their thoracic sling. It looks like the horse is really trying to stay up there, but the way the rider is being positioned, leaning back like that when they're trying to extend, spurring the horse. So when the rider's spurring on the horse, they're bending their knee, right? And since this leg looks very stiff, when you spur the horse on like that and you have a stiff leg, you're actually tipping your pelvis in the wrong direction and then shoving yourself onto their shoulder and impeding their movement. So that's why this horse is not very happy. So this horse is trying to be up. She's trying to lift the thoracic sling, and I think probably, and this is why I don't think this rider trained this horse, because the horse wants to lift the thoracic sling, and I think the horse has experienced a better rider. Not that this rider is completely horrible, but this rider has work to do. But the rider is not putting herself in the correct position actively in order to allow the horse to freely move. So that is likely one of the reasons why this horse is not happy. Because horses generally want to do well for us. They want to do a good job. But then when we actively work against them to do the job that we've trained them to do, they get frustrated sometimes. So this looks like a second level horse, training level rider, doing a second level test on a second level horse. But I can tell you the rider's hand is at least steady and consistent. She needs to work on her leg, maybe even let out her stirrup a hole. So it is an okay canter lengthening. I would have wanted to see more lengthen. A little more push from the hind end. And then here's that. There we go. Here's our canter. Yep, and since this is third level, we're doing counter canter on a curve. So that is more of a physical game instead of a mind game. It is a test of straightness and whether the horse is balanced. There's a simple change. The horse did decently. Again, the rider is leaning back and driving their pelvis into this horse's shoulder. And I say shoulder because you are sitting on their trapezius, which supports the shoulder, even though it goes down their back. And when a rider pushes the horse's shoulder back down, when the horse is trying to lift their thoracic sling, it also impedes their breathing. So when the horse has experienced an open thoracic sling and good carriage, they tend to want to do that more. The stronger they get, the more they'll do it by themselves. But if you are impeding them by driving your hips into them all the time and closing your knees and not allowing the horse to move freely under you, you're actually impeding how they breathe, and it's another reason why the horse will not like that. Because remember, their lungs are not where the girth is. Their lungs are right underneath of you when you're riding them. You've got a bunch of muscle in between them, but the lungs are right there. So, the movements themselves were executed somewhat decently, but again, on none of them did I see any true second level carriage that I would have expected out of a student of mine that is testing at second level. And again, remember, there's a difference between testing and schooling. Schooling at second level, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to be working through a few things. I would expect some of these guys to be schooling at second level. But when you are going to test at second level, the expectation is high. I promised that we would talk about the headset thing. So when you are trying to get a horse to stretch forward down, apparently, if you widen your hands, like you see a lot of people doing in a lot of these tests, just about everybody, apparently you can kind of get a certain headset from the horse going down. The horse isn't really truly lifting because you still have contact with the horse's mouth. It's hard to explain. They're putting their head down, but they're not necessarily lifting properly. They're just putting their head down. So it's kind of a false reach or a false headset. But since it's easier to do, they widen their hands. And students are taught that's exactly what you do to stretch the horse forward down. You have to widen your hands. And a lot of these riders don't know any better because they're not taught any better. But if you have a true stretching forward down gait, you don't have to widen your hands for the headset. So again, you can get away with that with the lower levels, but second level, expectation is so much higher. You need to have lift, you need to have freedom of movement, you need to have steady hands, steady legs, not tight, not kicking, not driving. And sometimes this is hard to explain to people because you see this at the top levels in the Olympics. You see these driving seats, you see all of this, these tight hands are like, you need a double bridle because you see these people using double bridles with the both reins kind of going in. So instead of using the two bits to articulate certain things differently, they're just using them as a stronger bit. And that's not okay. But again, that's our second level. If you're riding second level, remember, expectations much higher. Please join me for the next one, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please keep schooling with your horses. Please keep showing with the USDF. We need to support this this sport in a safe, reasonable, and humane manner, and try to get more horses off their forehand and freely moving and breathing so that everybody is having a good time. All right, you have a wonderful day.